the ITV election debate. A reminder that you can join in the conversation we're having tonight using the hashtag ITV debate. Now let's get straight on to our next question from Christine from Manchester. Christine.
I keep hearing migration levels are too high and getting higher, and it's a strain on public services. But I understand we as a country need some foreign workers. What are you going to do?
Thank you very much indeed, Christine. Angela Rayner.
Thanks, Christine. And what we need at the moment is a skills strategy. We've not had an industrial and skills strategy. So what we've had is we've been over-reliant on our economy from overseas workers to fill our skills gap. And they've done a tremendous job in doing that. And we have needed that. But what we really need, as unemployment levels have gone higher again, is we need to really match those skills and give people opportunity to take those jobs. And that's what Labour's industrial and skills strategy is about. It's about not relying on overseas workers. And we'll always have overseas workers that come and help us, but we also need to have a strategy on how we skill up people here in the UK.
Thank you very much indeed, Angela Rayner. Nigel Farage.
Well, it's funny Angela Rayner says that because Labour today launched their 6 key priorities for the general election and didn't mention the single most important issue affecting the lives of everybody in this country, namely the population explosion caused directly by migration. The reason we voted Brexit and the reason Penny's party got the massive majority in 2019 is we voted to reduce the numbers coming in, and the numbers have exploded. I mean, honestly, unbelievable. 1 in 30 people walking on the street out there has come in the last 2 years alone. The answer is we have to have net migration at 0. It means skilled workers can come, we can go work abroad, we have to have a freeze on the total numbers of those coming in.
Thank you very much. Carla Denyer.
Christine, you're right. Our economy needs migration. Migration does change communities. In my view, that is a positive. However, I understand it can be unsettling, especially when change happens fast. And it can be particularly unsettling when the government doesn't invest properly in our public services. We think it's shameful when some politicians scapegoat the people who become our neighbours, our friends, our colleagues, to distract from their chronic underinvestment in public services. The solution isn't scapegoating or pulling up the drawbridge. The solution is investing in our communities to make sure everyone has access to the services they need. My party will never engage in that scapegoating rhetoric.
Thank you. Stephen Flynn.
So Scotland has a migration problem. The problem is we don't have enough migrants because Scotland has a declining working age population. So we need people to come. And you know what? I am genuinely fed up going to speak to businesses, going to speak to healthcare workers, going to speak to people in our social care sector, in our schools and beyond, who say that they need more colleagues. Businesses who want to expand, who need people to come and work with them and for them. That's why I'm in favour of migration. And this race to the right that is happening in Westminster is so wrong. We can do better. We must demand better, not just from the Tories, but from the Labour Party too. And the SNP will always do that.
Thank you very much. Daisy Cooper.
Our NHS, our care service, hospitality, engineering, you name it, almost every single sector in this country is absolutely crying out for people with the skills that they need. And under this Conservative government, what has happened is they always pull the lever for immigration, and people come here and we should welcome them when they do and contribute to our economy, but they haven't invested in our domestic workforce. Liberal Democrats have a plan to give a higher minimum wage to care workers, £2 higher than the minimum wage for everybody else, so we can get people back working in the care sector. We want to create a Royal College of Care Workers so they've got a bigger, stronger voice and give them genuine vocation and training throughout their lifetime. We also need to have a skills lifetime account as well, because people need to retrain and reskill throughout their life. But when people come here to look after our loved ones, we should welcome them, but we must also invest in our domestic workforce at the same time.
Thank you, Daisy Cooper. Raina Abraworth.
It's a very well-worded question, isn't it? I keep hearing that this is a problem, says Christine. And you know what? I think we need to heed and listen to people who have genuine concerns about the impact of the movement of population, pressures on public services, but we have to put that in the context of public spending cuts by the Conservatives. We have to look at the numbers of immigrants that we need to bring in for certain sectors in health and care and parts of the economy. Listen, I've been on a whistle-stop tour of Wales in the past week. You know, I try to listen to people, but the problem we have is that Nigel Farage here has been on a dog whistle tour of the UK for many, many years and exploiting the anxieties that people have, and we really need to change the way that we talk about this issue.
It's making us poorer. That's the point.
Thank you.
It's making us poorer.
Thank you. We are doing these answers uninterrupted. Thank you. Penny Mordaunt.
And public spending is going up. But you put the question very well, and I think whatever the public think about the numbers, what they want from their government and their parliament is to control access of foreign nationals to the UK. So what we are proposing is that every year Parliament will put a cap on the number of family and work visas, informed by what our workforces need, but also that what pressures would be put on housing and community services. That way we can ensure that each year the numbers come down, and on our plans we are due to halve that number, halve migration by next summer. With us you get a cap and a plan. With Labour they have no cap, no number and no plan.
Okay, thank you Penny Mordaunt for that. Just to return to Christine's question, she's hearing that migration levels are too high, getting higher, putting a strain on those public services. She understands as a country, she says, that we need some foreign workers. What are we going to do about it? Just before we get the debate flowing, please raise your hand if you think the net level of legal migration, that is the additional number of people coming to the country to work and live, needs to fall. Please raise your hand. The number needs to fall.
What a sorry
Nigel Farage, Penny Mordaunt.
It's due to fall anyway.
Daisy Cooper, Angela Rayner.
The
Thank you very
Westminster
much.
status quo. That's the Westminster
not at
status
all.
quo. Of course
No,
it is.
no,
The
no,
four main parties.
No, it isn't.
The four main
No, it isn't,
parties,
Steve.
all with the exact
I welcome
same-
immigration because I think that people come here and they're more likely to prop up our public services and work in our public services rather than they are to put a drain on our public services. So I welcome immigration in this country because they contribute to our public service. But the numbers are due to come down anyway. But I think part of the reason we have so many people coming here, and I welcome them when they do, is because we're not investing in our domestic workforce, and we can do both at the same time.
Okay, thank you. There was some pretty strong language used towards Nigel Farage about dog whistle tours and scapegoat politics. What's your response to that?
I'm just
Nigel
talking
Farage?
numbers. We haven't even mentioned housing yet.
But could you respond to that point in
Oh, no, I
particular?
ignore that nonsense. Complete nonsense. I'm just talking pure facts. Housing. We have to build one new home every 2 minutes just to cope with legal net migration under this Conservative government. It is literally impossible. And as for the numbers coming in, I would respond to this. 50% of the 750,000 who are coming in a year are dependents. They're not wealth creators. And mass migration is making us poorer. You'll hear, GDP's going up. Well, of course it is. There are more people. GDP per capita, our relative wealth, has declined for the last 6 consecutive quarters.
I hear Nigel talking a lot about. I hear Nigel Farage talking a lot about dependence.
Facts.
The problem that we have in higher education now is that changes in visa requirements means that family members aren't able to come and study to accompany students to universities. That is causing major problems in terms of revenue for our higher education.
You shouldn't bring your mum. You come to university in Britain, you can't bring your mum, can you? I mean, come on.
We need people to come to study in our universities. And
We want people from abroad to care for our loved ones. They should be able to bring their loved ones with them.
Okay, thank you. I just want to turn to Angela Rayner, who's quite quiet here. You did raise your hand alongside Nigel Farage on that question. Angela Rayner.
Yeah, because the Tories, they talk about a cap, but we've had net migration going up and up because our economy has relied on overseas workers well, it's flatlining. But what we've said is that we need an industrial and skills strategy because we've got unemployment going up in the latest figures.
You've
So
had
we've got to make
14
sure
years to come up with some ideas on this, and we have. We've got
a workforce plan for the NHS. We've got a workforce plan for social care.
We don't have a workforce
It will inform a vote on the floor of the House of Commons from your democratically elected representatives. Will be able to cap the visas.
It is absolute rubbish. You've
talk about the issues that the question of
net migration has gone up.
You have no idea. You have no workforce strategy. You have no industrial strategy. You have no
Are you talking to me or Rishi?
Thank you.
Are you talking to me or Rishi? Because that is exactly
the election campaign. What's your plan?
Thank you.
You
thank
haven't
you.
got one.
I'm going to thank you, Angela Rayner. Stephen Flynn.
Follow that. The reality is that Angela was being quiet because the leader of her party, Keir Starmer, just a couple of years ago, said that we should be talking about the positive benefits of migration. And I actually believe that Angela Rayner probably agrees more with me on this topic rather than she does Nigel Farage or Penny Mordaunt. But the Labour Party has changed, and it's changed in the wrong direction. And when Nigel Farage tells you all that migrants are making you poor and they're the problem, don't believe him. Do you want to know the biggest problem facing the UK economy right now? His pet project of Brexit. £40 billion worth of tax receipts. And do you want to know what makes it worse? The Labour Party back Brexit as outlined by their manifesto today. Shameful.
No, I need you to respond, Angela Rayner, to all of those points, particularly the point. Are you on his side, really, as Stephen Flynn's implying or asking directly? What did you...
Look, first of all, we respect the result of the referendum. I know that the SNP never do, but we do, and that's what we've said on that point. On the second point, I absolutely believe that people come to this country and work hard and contribute, but we cannot have an economy that relies on just overseas workers. We have to also have an industrial and skills strategy when unemployment is going up in the UK, that we can train and fill our skills gaps as well.
You haven't had to do anything
Penny,
else.
you've been in power 14 years. 14 years. You haven't got one.
Don't.
You promised an employment bill. We never got one. You promised to bring down net migration. You haven't done it.
Thank you very much, Penny Mordaunt, Angela Rayner. I think we might
give you the worst of all possible worlds for the EU, because they will take you back
very
in
much
without any of the benefits of membership.
Penny, sorry.
You keep talking about your workforce strategy. What are you doing to deal with the emigration, the people leaving from our health and social care because they're not being properly paid for the work they do?
I'm fighting Labour's plans to tax our healthcare professionals on their pensions. That's what I'm fighting. Senior nurses,
that's
doctors
why anyone's leaving.
are going to leave the NHS, and they're also going to be piling on additional pressures into our...
Penny, we haven't won the general election
next time, and we'll try and find someone who says that's why they're leaving.
I won't be on the
All right, Nigel Farage.
Christine, the answer to your question is, what are they going to do about it? Neither of them will do anything. These people have lied to us repeatedly, and Labour, and
you made a career doing that.
Repeatedly. I know. I've actually always told the truth. Always said what I've. And Labour, it's not even in your first 6 priorities for government. You haven't got the will to do anything about it. Nothing under these is going to change, and the vast majority. Not on this panel, obviously, because they're not representative in that sense. The vast majority of Britons want net migration reduced significantly.
Angela Rayner, whilst I pick my cards up.
Thank you. Well, actually, in our first steps, we talk about a border force command so that we can deal with the crossings and people that are putting their lives at risk, because the Rwanda scheme will never work. It's always been a gimmick. We would put that money into tackling the gangs, and Keir Starmer said today he's worked on counter-terrorism with overseas before. We can do it again. These gangs that are putting people's lives at risk should not be carrying on in the way they are.
And again, you have no plan to do it.
Well,
tell everyone what you're going to do with illegal migrants when they come here. What are you going to do with illegal migrants when they come here, Angela?
We have said that we will fill our skills gap with an industrial strategy to match people to the skills. Because what the Tories...
Thank you.
You're not letting me finish.
Your leader was asked a specific question at the manifesto launch today.
Thank you.
And your leader couldn't answer it.
Penny Mordaunt, thank you. I must bring in...
with illegal migrants that come here?
Thank you, Penny Mordaunt.
Angela Rayner mentioned the border force. Angela Rayner mentioned the border force. We're back to Brexit here. Of course, it's more difficult to control our borders and immigration because of Brexit and the fact that our relationship isn't what it was with the European Union. And on Brexit, £4 billion has been spent on controlling our borders when we used to have borders that were free. And the question I ask myself time and time again in this election is, what has happened to Labour? After Brexit, I didn't want to leave the European Union, but once that vote happened, we had to think of ways, okay, of trying to protect our interest. I worked with Labour colleagues of yours on a document called Securing Wales's Future, which proposed getting back or staying in the customs union and the single market so at least we could look after our trade interests. What happened to you? Why won't you even talk about that in the Labour Party now? It's because you're afraid of the Conservatives are afraid of Nigel Farage, and we end up in the trouble that we're in.
Angela Rayner, respond directly to that
point. First of all, nobody thinks people should be crossing on small boats and putting their lives at peril. That's why we don't think these gangs should be allowed to do that. That's why we're putting the money into stopping that from happening. And in terms of, what we're going to do to support, sorry, I forgot what your other part of the question was, but...
Okay. All right, if you're so... We're just going to take a pause and a breather there. I'm just gathering my thoughts as well as gathering my thoughts here. So we're just going to draw a little bit of a line, but actually stay broadly on the subject, as you'll see, because you're quite keen to talk about Brexit. Before we go to our next break, I'd like to ask you all a pretty quick-fire question from Ken in Caerphilly. He told us that he had a simple question, yes or no. If elected, would you ever rejoin the EU or the single market? Angela Rayner.
No, and your other question before was Brexit, and as a result of the referendum, that's what we expect.
You would never rejoin the EU or the single market?
No.
Shameful.
Thank you.
Shameful.
Not on the table at this election, unfortunately, but at some point in the future, I very much hope so.
Thank you very much. Penny Mordaunt.
No, and if you have a Labour government, they will take you back in, they will tie you on defence, on migration, on regulation, without any of the benefits of membership.
Carla Denyer.
Yes, when the time is right.
Thank you. Nigel Farage.
No, we're free. Unfortunately, we're governed incompetently, but at least there are mistakes and not somebody else's.
Stephen Flynn.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Andrea.
I have no doubt that Wales is best served by being in the European Union, but for now, let's get back in the customs union and the single market to help our economy.
Thank you all very much for being so sharp and quick and clear with your answers on that. We will leave that issue there for now.